Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we have a pleasure to have Urban Jurca with us. Urban is VP of DevOps, and he will contribute to our DevOps Mentorship program by providing his insights about DevOps culture, DevOps practices, and everything basically around DevOps. All our classes so far were on our Balkan region languages. For those who are listening us on English language, just few sentences about the DevOps Mentorship program. DevOps Mentorship program is basically a free mentorship program organized by AWS user groups in Bosnia, Montenegro, and Serbia to help everyone who are eager to learn about DevOps tools and DevOps technologies. As part of our DevOps Mentorship program, we are not trying just to teach and mentor others how to use different DevOps tools. We are also trying to transfer knowledge about some soft skills and how to be a successful, not just DevOps engineer, but how to be successful IT professional. Because of that, tonight we have with us Urban, and yeah, we are all very excited to have you here with us, Urban, tonight.
Thanks
Welcome.
for the invitation. And thanks everybody for the willingness to listen to me for the next few minutes.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. So like Jinan already said, my name is Urban Jurca. I'm based in Slovenia. Personally, like I recently became a family man. So we do have a very small boy at home. I do a lot of extreme sports, downhill biking, kite surfing. I like to be in nature a lot. We travel a lot. We do have a camper van. So Gina and I, on occasions, also talk when I'm not at home, like in a different country. So yeah, we try and move. Professionally, I started off basically as a full stack developer way back in college, in university, sorry. And I was always interested about infrastructure and got involved in networking back when I was still a student. And the local systems integrator took me through a student job, and I had an opportunity to work with them to set up one of the first IPv6 setups in Slovenia. And back then it was, you just had IPv6 islands and data tunnels, which was interesting. And then I continue on the networking journey, became a networking engineer, and after that, a networking security engineer. And I built a lot, primarily worked with a lot of foreign customers in the Middle East, North Africa, and West Coast US, building data centers and primarily focusing on data center security at the time. And this was around 2016, 2017 when I heard about Bitcoin. And after that, Ethereum. And I started getting bored in my old job and took a foray into smart contract development. So turned back into a developer for a few months. And the bear market happened. So I was looking out for a job after 6 to 8 months, something like that. And I joined Bitstamp as their systems engineer #2, where I had to design basically the entire internal data center that they have in place now. And my next project was to introduce the matching engine into Bitstamp's core infrastructure. And this also meant that our team had to steadily grow, and we went from 2 engineers to 3, and then 3 to 5, and 5 to 8, and so on. And I became a team lead at that point. And after that, a division lead, where we had a few teams, and after that, a head of infrastructure in Bitstamp. So we had 4 teams at the end, taking care of the entire infrastructure, which was pretty big. And after 5 years, basically I needed a change. So I jumped to another crypto company that's called Qredo. It's a custodian, where I now had DevOps, basically, a few of their teams. And it's a startup, more or less. So we're introducing a lot of the latest tech, and we need to consolidate everything that they have. So it's an interesting journey, to be honest. And that's briefly about me. So.
Well, thank you for the intro. We have a lot of things to talk about. You mentioned that in the beginnings of your career you were a software engineer, and then you were interested into the infrastructure, and you make that transition. How that transition went? So how did you make it?
For me, it was very simple because I always I liked hardware. So growing up, I was building PCs and building servers, and then deploying apps to those servers in my basement that flooded 3 times, and you had to rebuild the PC because the disk exploded or the capacitors went out. So for me, I'm always been more interested on the infra side, because it's something that I could work on with my hands. And that's why networking for me was sort of very approachable, because I could go in, I could grab a router, a switch, I could plug it into the rack. I had to design everything, how the cabling is going to go, the VLANs, the subnets. And then you configure it with what you designed. And I thought that was like really cool, because it was like a 2-step process. You touch the hardware, you build it, and then you program the hardware. Like you still use your software approach on how you want to design things, but you go a few steps back. Like you don't go full stack development anymore, but you go into scripts, you go into automation, and so forth. So for me, it was very simple because I'm built like that. Like I like hardware.
One interesting thing is basically my next question is how much that knowledge from the software development side of the story helped you to be successful as in DevOps or infrastructure?
A lot, actually, because it still gives me the opportunity to create proof of concepts, which are you need. I guess you need that skill if you want to present it to certain management and so on, especially if you get ideas like what you can do with the infrastructure, right? For example, and this is actually an actual example, like I used to be heavily involved in large-scale Wi-Fi setups, right? And which basically meant you had to configure the network, the access points, all the routing, all the switching, all the access policies that you wanted to work. And then what really bothered me with my employer at the time was we had to timestamp ourselves. When you come to work, you got a card, and when you go off work, you press the card again, and then they basically counted the hours that you were present. And that like really bothered me. And what I ended up doing was a POC, which I wrote with my rudimentary software skills at the time, where when you were near a Wi-Fi, or when you connected to the Wi-Fi, it automatically logged you into the system, and when you disconnected from the Wi-Fi, it automatically logged you out of the system, right? So it was a very simple POC of how you can how you can be present at work and automatically build your hours, or how you can go outside of work and those hours are then deducted from you. And it was a very simple POC for me. It was a PHP page with an HTML table and a few CSS elements on it. And that actually that POC when being presented to Špica, which is one of the largest companies here in Slovenia for access management systems. And we actually piloted that program. So that's like one example that you can do it, where you can combine infrastructure with an idea that you have. Right? So software development skills are going to come in handy, especially if you want to maybe accelerate a little bit more through your career, because there's a lot of things that you can do if you have some rudimentary software knowledge, not just how you can modularize your Ansible or your Terraform, or if you're running Flux, how you can do modules, but how you can actually convert the stuff that you're doing on the infrastructure level to a product. Like that's an amazing skill to have for anybody.
You mentioned how your career path looks so far. When you look behind you from this point in time, if you could learn something else, or if you could change something, what would that be? So would you take some other technology to look into the earlier, or
Yeah, obviously, being more present in crypto would have been totally amazing. But coming back to infrastructure, um, one of the things that I regret is I was always too busy doing the job and not experimenting that much while on the job, right? So the problem with that is you get like tunnel vision at some point where you're good at a subset of technologies that you use, and you're very good at those, right? But you're not seeing maybe the bigger picture, right? So what I'm trying to do now, and is my recommendation to anybody, try and experiment, like take the time to experiment with new technologies that may be fun and exciting for you. Just to get, you're in the beginning of your journey, but to get the energy back to try and continue. That's something that I would have done differently, looking back, because I was very much, goal oriented. We're going to do this certification, and I don't care about anything else. I think that was, I'm not going to say necessarily a bad choice, but I would have done it differently. I would have explored more than I did.
And since we all here are on the beginning of our DevOps journey, and we are looking forward to become a successful and great DevOps engineers, what would you advise to us? So what would be your advice?
Learn, experiment, try out new things, learn as much as you can. There's a whole world of free stuff that you can try out, from AWS to GCP. You have free accounts everywhere, or very low cost accounts. I mean, you can run a managed Kubernetes cluster for $40 a month on DigitalOcean, right? Which is very cheap if you want to learn that stuff, right? Just see what's out there. But my very heartfelt recommendation is, like, make it a project, make it something that's fun for you. Deploy your own to-do app on K8, or spin up an EC2 instance and provision it in whichever way you want, right? Make a fun project for yourself and explore the new technologies. I think that's the best way to start.
And now fast forward to your current position. Let's imagine that you have a budget to employ a junior DevOps engineer in your team. Okay. And you hired a recruiting team, and they bring to you dozens of CVs, and you are reviewing them. What would be the first thing which you would notice on those CVs?
All right. So when you're going to apply for a job, and this is so much easier now with all the AI tooling than it used to be, right? Never have one CV, but make it tailored for the company that you're coming in, right? Because I'm going to immediately see that the Europass CV, and I'm just going to throw it out, because you put zero effort approaching the company, right? Explore the company, see what the company is doing, tailor the CV to the company's needs. So, like, that's going to be the first step, right? Hopefully the company has some sort of blog post on technologies that you're using. So try to do a little research then. If you're, like, for example, if you already wanted to join Bitstamp, we made it absolutely clear that we're an AWS shop. Learn about AWS tech, put it on the CV, then apply. That's going to give you so much more bonus points, right? What I look specifically in the CVs, it's a twofold answer. One is, from a technical standpoint, we're looking for a candidate that might fit our needs. And that's why I said, explore the company, which technologies they're using, trying to learn them, and put that on your CV. You're already halfway out the door, right? The second part is, for me, that I figure out during the interview process. If you come to the interview process, it's how you are as a person, like, which is very important. If you are striving to be a DevOps, because you will always be a bridge between two different cultures. And if you're, pardon the language, a dick, that's not going to work, For the CV part, tailor it for the company, explore what we do. It's going to get so much easier for you. Also, be creative. It's going to show character, especially in the introduction to yourself.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I hope this was like helpful tips how to achieve that first job, because for most of the people that's the biggest issue when they are starting their career. Somehow it becomes standard in IT industry that everyone are looking for the experienced engineers and someone who has some years of the experience. So that's the reason why I asked this question about that first job, what we can do as a junior engineer coming to the company, coming to the interview to get that actual job.
Yeah. Anything that you can do with a community, that you can be present, participate, for example, in an AWS user group, maybe make a session there. Anything that is just not plain academia is going to work wonders for you. Like, you could have your own projects, you can have your own GitHub repo and be active there. Like, coming directly out of uni and expecting that you're going to get a job is an illusion. Like, you need to do side projects, make them public. Like we discussed, the to-do app, make it public. Use GitHub Pages, it's free. And we can see what you're actually capable of. This is going to give you so many more bonus points. On the flip side, there's always the hacking option. If you want to do with LinkedIn, you can purchase LinkedIn Premium for free for a month, right? And you can actually contact the recruiters directly, specifying why would you like to work for them, what value can you bring. That's gonna tear you apart from the rest of the competition completely. So it's a totally different approach, right? And it's proven to work, right? Because if somebody reaches out directly, that she wants to do the work, is willing to go the extra mile, and is super excited, you don't see that on a CV, right? Once you get it, but maybe in a direct contact you will. So utilize the tools that you have. Think outside of the box a little bit. Be active outside of uni. Have your own projects. Make them visible. That's going to give you a lot of advantage.
And you built a great teams. I had an opportunity to meet the team with which you worked in your previous company, and I can say a group of pure genius. And now I'm curious how to succeed in the team, how to become, okay, we went through the first stage, we got the job, we are now part of your team. How I can become successful in your team?
Like, generally, this will always depend on the team lead or the manager, right? So it's my job, it's our job to help you grow, to guide you, and especially to give and set appropriate expectations for everybody, right? And expectations have to be like explicitly defined. I hate working in a gray zone. If, for example, like if we agree on a project and we agree that you own it, then you own it. Like, I won't micromanage you. I expect everybody to deliver their own things, to learn as they go. And I expect everybody that if, there are problems, because inevitably there will be problems, they come up, they speak, right? How to become a great team? Like, there's this, is it Simon something that does a lot of team building exercises. It's how they select, who's going to be on the SEAL team, on the SEAL teams, the American military, right? It's the best military unit in the world. They don't have A-class individual members, right? They have an A-class team. Individual members are probably a 7 to an 8 out of 10 scale. So how to become great as an individual? you can be the best individual in the world, and if your character is wrong, we're probably going to throw you out of the team, right? So how do you build a great team is you need to have strong individuals that are honest with each other, that earn trust with each other. That's how you build a great team. That's how you enable learning. That's how you enable trust, right? So when you come into a new team, if it is a strong team, we will open you with open arms. We're going to throw absolute trust at you. You own your shit, whatever we give you, but be honest back. That's how we're going to build a team, right? If we don't have that, then the trust is going to fade at some point and the team will not function anymore.
Yesterday we had a similar talk like we have now with you, with Viktor Farcic, and there we spoke with him about different DevOps cultures, principles, etc. And what he mentioned in one of his podcasts in his podcast, DevOps Paradox, is that DevOps is basically having a team which is capable to do everything. So what is important, in my opinion, what is important to know is that you cannot success on your own. Your success depends on your team, and how much you are successful is basically how much is your team successful. So you should give your best to help everyone, to help your team basically to succeed. And if you do that, you have a chance to be successful yourself.
Exactly. That's exactly true.
Okay, and now let's expand that question even more. You were working with, and you are still working with the great engineers, and you are surrounded by great experts. Which of their skill you admire the most? When you see some skill, technical, non-technical, soft skill, you say, wow, I like this man.
Like the technical skills, obviously they're you have to admire them. What I like more is that a person has ownership of what they're doing. That like means the world to me. That you see that, for a person to own something end to end and you can rely on them, that's one of the best feelings that you get from a team that you can have, right? That's what I admire the most. The technical proficiency, at the end of the day, like technical proficiency is something that everybody can learn, right? Everybody has the option of becoming an expert. Right? The great engineers that stand apart are the ones that have good ownership, have good communication skills, that have the appropriate soft skills. Those are then great engineers, right? That you can actually tell them apart. Right? From a technical perspective, like you have characters that are brilliant, right? They may be hard to manage. They may not fit into a team because they may be too brilliant. So of course you want to keep them. So you have to create maybe a different position for them inside the company. Maybe put them in a specialist role or something like that. Right? But coming back to your question, what I admire most in people is their character far more than the technical skills, because the technical skills I can build. The character is something that you have to work on your own, and that's hard.
And you mentioned several times term ownership, how to properly own the project. I joined your team. You give me, we have a new internal project which we are building, some kind of our internal service, and you are asking for me to build a CI/CD pipeline for that project and basically to support our dev team with whatever they need for that project to become available for use inside our company. What do you expect from me as an owner of that project?
It's going to be a broad answer, like honesty. It's going to cover everything that falls under this umbrella. So this is going to be like a plastic example. When I was at Bitstamp and we had to introduce the matching engine, I was there for like 7 months, something like that. And I just pretty much gotten all the accesses to the cloud infrastructure because I was working on premise before that. And you know, the project was, we have to plug in this magic black box into our infrastructure, and all the trading has to go through it. Urban, this is yours. I didn't know what to do with it, right? So it took me, I took the project, I said, okay, I'm going to own it. And then all the questions started. So for me, it was very important that I was clear on the objectives that I have. And I was very forefront, I was very vocal about this. I was asking questions to my boss, to my peers all the time until I actually got the spec right for what I need to do. So that's like one part of the ownership. When you accept something, explore it, understand what you actually need to do. Then you start the actual implementation. Then you plug in the box, you do the routing, you do the whole setup, you automate everything. And when you hit a roadblock, the dumbest thing that you can do is keep it to yourself. Right? When you stumble across a problem, even if you own that problem and you think you need help, you know, please say so. I was seeking for help all the time. You will always get it, right? And that is way, way better than for someone that gives you a task that you own, a project that you own, and you're not honest about the challenges that you're facing, the roadblocks that you have, and that will inevitably make the project worse, and it's going to delay it as well. So for me, the ownership is not just saying, yes, I will do the project. It's ownership also means that we are always in communication how the project is going. If you need any help, if we need to pivot the project, anything, this needs to be loud and clear, right?
And often when we are doing on projects, we are asked to provide an estimate. And me, as a junior engineer, I got task on which I need to contribute to. And my manager is asking me, or my team lead is asking me, how much time do you need for this? When will you complete this?
Yeah, everybody's gonna ask you that. So we had this in my first company. We had what we call the pi factor. You know, the pi number 3.14. We always go into projects like super optimistic. Yeah, we're so gonna do this in 2 weeks, and then, you know, 5 weeks later, you're barely done with it. And it was the same. That company, because we had to scope the project, because we sold the project and then we actually started working. So there was a whole bunch of assumptions that you had to do for the time scope. So we introduced the pi factor, which basically meant if I think it's going to take me 2 weeks to work on the project, I'm just going to say it's going to take me 6 weeks. Then it's a debate with your manager that's too long. We'll have to do it in 4 weeks. And you're probably going to do it in 4 weeks, right? The main point I'm trying to get across is whatever estimate you put, multiply it by at least 2, and that's going to be your realistic number, especially if you're going to be working with operations. Why is it like that? Because you're always going to have end of the world tasks, production is down tasks. Pick something that has a higher priority than your project, and that's going to take your time. Right? The way management works is they always think that, yeah, but Jinan said he's going to complete this in 2 weeks, and they think that he's going to be working on this and only this for 2 weeks, not the 5 more projects that he has. Right? So when doing estimates, think from a position like how management's going to think about it. If you're going to say you're going to do it in 2 weeks and then you have all these interruptions, of course it's not going to happen. It's natural, it's not going to happen. So either use pi and then negotiate, or just multiply by 2, and that's going to be a safe enough zone for you. After that, it's always going to be a negotiation with somebody. Why is it so long?
The estimates are often an issue, not just for the beginners, but often teams are late with the projects. So yeah, that's one of the most important topics when you are part of the team, how to provide an estimate. And follow-up question on that is that I told you I will be done in 4 weeks. I multiply that by 2, and that's like all the buffer time I needed. But then I figure out that I will be late. How to communicate that properly? How to say to my teammates, to my team lead, that I will be actually late. So how to do that?
It's again like honesty. Like I don't mind if somebody's honest with me, because I understand that these things happen. I've been working in this sphere for long enough. We just had an example in Qredo today. We have this high priority project coming out. I joined while this project was already running, so I was, observing from the sidelines, and half of the time I was just like, these deadlines are unrealistic, and everybody's just saying yes. Right? So today, actually, 2 of my team leads, we got together. We need to deliver an additional service mesh and network policy controls for Kubernetes cluster. And it's something that we have to POC and test out. And it was imposed in the middle of the project that we need to do so. So that changed a scope, but the timelines didn't change, right? So they both told me that no way can we reach the deadline. They were like brutally honest, because we have to do this, 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 and this, right? And that's fair, because if people are honest with me and I know that they're doing their best, but there are problems either in scope or the subject matter that is being worked on, I can live with that, and I can argue that, and I can defend that against anybody, right? So then it becomes my job as a lead or a manager to push those deadlines away. So if there's a blocker, like I put onto your hearts that raise the issue as soon as you can, because if the deadline is tomorrow and then you say, yeah, I need like 5 more weeks, then this becomes a little bit more of a different argument, right? But don't be scared, like delays happen. Deadlines always get bumped. As long as we know the reason why it's so, and we know, well enough, a bit beforehand, then usually it's not a problem. So just don't be scared.
Cool. And we need now to get back a few steps, and you are working remotely and you are a family man, so you have a lot of things outside of the work hours. How to properly work remotely, how to build the routines, and how, especially for the beginners when they are starting remotely and they join the new team as a remote team member, there is no office to say hey in the morning, or to have chit-chat conversations with someone until picking the coffee from the machine. So how to integrate into the team as a remote worker, as a beginner. So what are the crucial parts there?
I think it doesn't really matter if you're a beginner or if you're anywhere, basically. Whenever you join, meet your peers. Schedule a one-on-one session with them, 20-30 minutes initially, so that you get to know them on a personal level, right? This is going to make your life so much easier. And your your lead can actually give you a list of people who might be good for you to meet. This is going to give you insight into the company. This is going to give you insight into personalities of the people that you're talking with. And it's going to accelerate your integration into the team. Like, don't be shy when you join a new company, just, to grab 15-20 minutes of somebody's time just to say hello and introduce yourself, and the same back, right? What I usually run as well is like not mandatory coffee chats. So for example, I make it a principle that usually at around 9 in the morning, I'm already working probably for an hour or half an hour, and I open up a communication channel. It could be a Slack huddle, it could be Gather Town, it could be a Zoom link, and if somebody wants to hop on and chat with me for 15 minutes, they're free to chat on. And you can chat about anything. You can chat about projects, you can chat about life, you can chat about whatever. It's like the coffee chat that you used to have in the office, but you're not in the office anymore. If nobody joins, like, that's fine, but probably one or two people are always going to join that chat. And it's for 15-20 minutes, nobody's going to care. Right? And probably teams already have this integrated as part of their remote culture. Some do, some don't, but it's always a good initiative to actually start this off. Right? For me, working remotely, I'm not going to lie, was a challenge at first because I'm very social. So especially, at Bitstamp, we were always together, and then COVID hit, and then everybody had to work from the office. And then my office kind of sucked at that time, so I didn't really like it. Now at Qredo, because I'm basically one or two people that's based in Slovenia, all the rest are all around the world. It's about routine, right? I wake up 6 something because the kid wakes up at that time, walk the dog, make breakfast, brush my teeth, put my work clothes on. I actually, put jeans on, have a different t-shirts when I work to mimic me going to the office. And then I'm at my desk for those 8-9 hours working, like not talking to the wife, not really talking to the dog and the kids. It's my work. And roughly at around 5 to 6, I close my laptop, I log off, and that's it. The perils of remote work are that you can always work 24/7. Like, the work is always going to be there. So for me, it was very hard because I like to work, but I recognize that I have to log off at some point. Right? So 5 or 6, I close the laptop, I take my phone, I don't look at Slack. Everybody has my number. If it's an emergency, they're going to call me, and I'm with the family. Like, I go to the gym. Like, this is my time, right?
Now you mentioned, was that always the case? Was that always the case that what people find often as an issue that during the regular workday hours, that's probably on their management, but during their regular work hours, they don't have time to learn things which they don't know. Because I'm a junior engineer, I need time during the day where I will be able to learn new things. How to find that time during the work hours?
You book it. I make it a point that I book out my lunch, because if I don't book out my lunch, I will never eat. I make it a point that I book out time for learning during office hours, right? To learn the company's technology, to learn the company's system, and that's me time, Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, maybe I think for junior developers, or for junior DevOps and everybody, it's a lot easier because you don't have that full of an agenda. My calendar is mostly filled with meetings all days, and I have to explicitly book the time that I will use for learning during those hours, right? That's one way of doing it, right? I'm not saying it's the right way, but for me, because I want to be present with the family in the evenings, it works. For if you're just starting, don't limit your learning. Like, you're going to find something that excites you and you're going to work on it in the evenings, in the afternoons, and that's fine. There's totally nothing wrong with that as long as you enjoy it, right?
There were a topic, we have a Slack community around this DevOps mentorship program, and few days ago was like a big message about the burnout, how
Yeah.
to fight the burnout, how to prevent the burnout. So your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I had 2 burnouts that I know of, and they look bad. You're actually going to start feeling like distance from your body. You're always going to be stressed. You will figure out that you're numb, so you're not feeling emotions so much. But the way you're going to figure out physically that you're burnout is when you're going to go on a bit longer vacation and the stress is going to just fall off your body, and you're probably just going to collapse, which happens to me twice. So this is coming back to the remote work, right? You need to stop yourself from working all the time. You need to mentally shift away from this. I'm really bad at this, by the way, because I enjoy working. So I have to mentally force myself not to think about work, and focus on things. For burnout, and I really can't stress this enough, and it's so easy. Work out. Honestly, it sounds idiotic, but work out. Working out is more beneficial for you than psychological therapy, than drugs, than anything that you can have. You just have to move your body. That's going to give you so much better stress control and manage. If you're on the onset of burnout, that's going to manage it much better than anything else, right? But don't stop taking care of your body. Eat healthy, exercise. If you do that, you will have to log off of work, because otherwise you can't do any exercise for an hour or 2 a day, and that's going to help you a lot. What people tend to do is you tend to get absorbed in work so much that you forget about these things, and it has happened to me, and that's one of my regrets. Like, it should not have happened. So if you do this right, you're going to log off, you're going to go work out, you're going to eat something healthy. You should not fall into a burnout loop.
We'll take a note of that. The thing, several more questions. I will not take you long. I know that you have some obligations after, but 2 more questions basically is, what is DevOps for you? What do you consider as a DevOps?
Yeah, you're probably not going to like my answer, because for me, and I joke about this, like, DevOps is this made up word, to be honest, because it's depending on the company where you are. What a DevOps does is like totally different. So people can classify your systems engineers as DevOps, and they are going to classify developers as DevOps because they just know how to run a kubectl command, right? For me, the DevOps is the person that's going to always bridge the gap of understanding between development and how to run that code at scale in a production system, right? Everything in there falls under the DevOps term. But you're going to see terms such as a platform engineer, and then you come questioning, like, what's the difference between a DevOps and a platform engineer, or a DevOps and an SRE? Like, where are the lines here, right? So basically, a DevOps, what it does is we try and bring products to life at scale. That's the DevOps main journey. And we have to communicate with the owners of the products, the developers, right? What they need to fix so that their product runs correctly, that they can monitor it, right? That they can actually own it in production, that they can be excited about their baby being live.
Cool. Thanks for that, because one of the things which, even if it's called the DevOps Mentorship Program, one of the things which we try to learn here is how to be better software engineer and how to be better IT professional. And all those things which you mentioned, I think that apply on all of the people who are involved inside the IT industry, not just for the DevOps or SRIs or whatever you call them. And yeah, one more question for the end is, which book you would recommend as to us as someone who is, well, trying to build the career inside the DevOps world?
Yeah. I guess I'd two of them. Like initially, definitely the Phoenix Project. This should be one of the go-to books, because it's going to showcase all the problems that companies are facing and how DevOps approaches and methodologies can solve those. It's basically a story. It's not like a how-to, but it's a fun story to read. So the Phoenix Project, definitely. If you want to have a more hands-on book, then I do recommend, actually the book is called The DevOps Handbook. It's written by the same authors that wrote the Phoenix Project, and it's also a very fun read. So I do recommend these two books, but start with the Phoenix Project as the first one. I think everybody's gonna like it.
Cool. Thank you, Urban. Before we close for the evening, we have a question in the chat, which is, well, how managers increase motivation of their engineers? What if your engineer is not motivated so well?
Oof.
First of all, why people here are asking questions about not being motivated?
Yeah. You're the start of your journey. Come on, you should be motivated. No, this is always going to happen at some point. It has happened to me. It has happened to my colleagues, and I've talked about this a lot. Usually, the demotivation happens when you feel you're not in control, right? Then you usually become demotivated. So then, like as a lead, what I try to do is I try to bring you in closer, bring you more ownership, give you a project that you like, and you can completely run it on your own. Right? The way it actually works is people are motivated when they can do things, right? And they're enabled to do so. So that's just basically ownership and giving them the power to do so. So for me to remove any roadblocks in their work, and to actually give them pride in their work, this is what they did. That increases motivation a lot. It's one of the best drivers, actually.
We have two more questions basically in the chat, and we will close with those. So first, Sarah is asking how to handle bad communication in the company when engineers don't have enough information, but there is a deadline. Yeah,
we're actually struggling with this at Qredo right now, because I figured out that the teams don't actually talk. So this is always, I'm way too vocal. I tend to over communicate to everybody on Slack, on emails, just to make it perfectly clear what my thought process is, why we're doing this. People are not really used to that. I'm finding out. But anyway, they like it more. What I try and implement is, and engineers like, hey, developers know this. For DevOps, it depends if you're familiar with it or not. But developers have always had like their daily stand-ups where you tell what's working, what you are working on, what the progress is, what the problems are. Operations teams like usually don't have that due to the nature of their work. I'm kind of enforcing them right now, where we talk about the priorities, progress, and problems. Like I call them the 3 Ps. That's 15 minutes, 20 minutes for 10 people, a team of 10 people. In those, everybody can ask me questions directly, and I answer those either through the team or offline, however we have time. I also figure out that all the coffee chat sessions are going to help with this, because you can ask your peers with that. And I make it a point to have Friday workshops and retros where we can discuss things like that. If you don't have enough information, but there is a deadline, always be vocal about it. And I hope that you have a good team lead that's going to support you and provide this information, because in the end, the team lead should do this, right? Like I said, I think especially when we're working remotely and as engineers, we need to have time to solve problems. And we don't like meetings that much, but a certain amount of them is necessary for this to actually, for the information to flow correctly.
And one interesting question.
Yeah, so, sorry, I'm not sure if I answered Sarah's question. So
yes, Sarah, did this was answered
Yes,
to
yes,
you?
thank you on a detailed response.
okay.
Cool. And the question from Sinisha is, do you think that this is instinct one? Do you think that DevOps position should be reserved for the people that are longer in IT industry? So if you have 10 years of the experience, you understand all the processes, technologies, etc., and you are able to see the bigger picture, you should be a DevOps. Everyone else, no.
No. I mean, it's an interesting question. Look, the answer is, I think, in order for you to be a successful DevOps, like a really good one, you need to have a very broad understanding of all the technologies. And I know that you guys talked about this, the TCP/IP stack, for example. What's a firewall? Those are like things that actually have nothing to do with DevOps themselves, but it's gonna give you a very broad and baseline level of knowledge that you're gonna use on a daily basis as a DevOps when you troubleshoot why your infrastructure is not working when you get a TCP timeout, and understand that, right? Having that broad knowledge is going to make you a much better DevOps than starting off just learning Ansible and Terraform and jumping into a DevOps role. Technically, in today's market, you will be called the DevOps. Are you going to be a very good one compared to the one that has that broad knowledge? Not so much, right? It's going to slow you down a lot. So do people that have been longer in the industry have a better predisposition? Perhaps. But there's a catch, right? If you're longer in the IT industry, you tend to stick with the things that work, which should be technologies that might be older but proven, and because that works for you and that protects the company. And then you perhaps don't explore as much the new technologies that are out there that a young person coming into the industry will, because it excites him, right? So not necessarily saying that whichever way is bad, just stressing that when you're on this path, learn on all the fundamental knowledge that's going to make you a great DevOps.
Cool. Yeah, well, often we used to think that if you have more years of the experience, that you will be better than someone who just is starting. Yeah, as you mentioned, that fundamental knowledge and broad knowledge is important, but also the motivation, willing to explore new things, to experiment, to try things. All those things are important. Thank you so much, Urban, for the tonight. I hope that all the team enjoyed. It was interesting to me, and I believe to the team as well. And I hope that we will see you soon in Sarajevo.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day, sorry, night, and enjoy the course. I think it's great.
Thank you, Urban. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.